student loan forgiveness resumes for 2 million borrowers. After a months-long pause, the U.S. Department of Education has resumed processing student loan forgiveness for about 2 million borrowers under income-based repayment (IBR) plans.
It seems like in his second term, President Trump really has his sight set on both the Department of Education as well as student loan forgiveness. As the expert in the space, I would love for you to explain what exactly is going on. So to start off the conversation, last week, President Trump signed an action targeting the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program, known as the PSLF. To start off the conversation, what does this program do?
So Public Service Loan Forgiveness, or PSLF, is a program that was created through bipartisan legislation in 2007 under President George W. Bush that allows borrowers to receive federal loan forgiveness after 10 years of qualifying payments while working for certain nonprofit or government organizations. It's designed to incentivize folks to work in fields that are traditionally high need. You need a advanced degree, but you might be paid significantly less than what you would be paid in an equivalent position in the private sector. And it's designed to get people to work into those roles.
This move offers long-awaited relief for many Americans who have been waiting for their debt to be officially canceled. What's happening? Borrowers enrolled in income-driven repayment programs are now receiving notifications that their remaining balances are being discharged. The Department of Education has confirmed that loan servicers will complete the forgiveness process over the next several months.
And who exactly are these borrowers? Who qualifies? What are those roles?
Yeah, so it's many types of nonprofit and government organizations. So teachers, nurses, doctors, public interest attorneys, firefighters, folks who work for the military, state and local and federal government employees, people who make our country run, basically, are those folks who stand to benefit most from these programs.
Most borrowers can expect their loans to be cleared within a few weeks, though some cases may take longer to show up in their accounts. The program had been temporarily paused to ensure accurate payment counts, a crucial step in verifying how many qualifying payments each borrower had made toward loan forgiveness. Opt-out option and tax concerns. While millions are eligible for automatic debt relief, borrowers do have the option to decline forgiveness. Those who wish to opt out must notify their loan servicer by October 21st, 2025. Some borrowers may choose to decline forgiveness due to potential state tax consequences. Although forgiven student debt is currently exempt from federal income taxes, certain states still treat canceled loans as taxable income. Borrowers who opt out will need to continue making regular loan payments. Why the timing matters. Under the American Rescue Plan of 2021,
you noted that Congress established the PSLF program in 2007. We know that George W. Bush, a Republican, was president at the time. You said it received bipartisan support. So what happened between 2007 and 2025 when a Republican president isn't too happy with it?
Well, I think that just like many other issues in the country, unfortunately, everything's just gotten more polarized. And I think that, the reality is, everything now seems to either have one side, supporting it and the other side doesn't. I do think that to some extent, this is kind of a backlash to what President Biden tried to do during his term, where he tried to enact some fixes to public service loan forgiveness and some other programs to make them more accessible, to correct historical problems that prevented people from accessing it. But he also tried to enact separate mass debt cancellation programs that were, very, polarizing and invited some degree of backlash.
I want to read some of the language from the action that was signed on March 7th. It's entitled Restoring Public Service Loan Forgiveness. And I would love to get your thoughts. This is what President Trump said in the action. Quote, the prior administration abused the PSLF program and that it, quote, misdirected tax dollars into activist organizations that not only fail to serve the public interest, but actually harm our national security and American values, sometimes through criminal means. The PSLF program also creates perverse incentives that can increase the cost of tuition, can load students into low-need majors with unsustainable debt, and may push students into organizations that hide under the umbrella of a nonprofit designation and degrade our national interest. As an attorney in the student loan space, as an expert in the subject, is what President Trump wrote in here true?
I don't think so. I mean, I work with hundreds of clients, hundreds of borrowers every year. I've not met a single person who is engaging or their organization is engaging in some sort of criminal behavior. These are by and large good people who are trying to do the right thing, who are repaying their loans. And many of them took positions in lower paying jobs working for these nonprofit or government employers because they believe in the mission. They want to give back. But in order to get these roles, you often have to have an advanced degree that requires student loan debt if you can't pay out of pocket. And this program is designed to incentivize people to do exactly that. And so I think by and large, these are good people trying to do good things.
You wrote about the action for Forbes. You said that the language in the action was vague. What exactly is in the action? What is President Trump specifically targeting in the PSLF program?
Yeah, so what President Trump is trying to do is remove from PSLF eligibility organizations that engage in certain types of conduct. And, he provides some categories of conduct that could be suspect under the order. This includes, any organization that is, running afoul of immigration laws or facilitating running afoul of immigration laws. This could be read very broadly to include basically any immigration rights organization or any organization that does any work with immigrants. There's language in there that references child abuse, but the words child abuse is only used in the context of providing healthcare to transgender youth. And that could easily be read to cover any organization that, supports or offers LGBT rights or fights for the rights of transgender people. Those organizations could be swept up into that. There's a category for what they refer to as illegal discrimination, which could easily be read to include any organization, including possibly even state and local governments that support DEI efforts. There's some concern that this essentially amounts to what's called viewpoint discrimination, which could run afoul of the First Amendment if it is basically penalizing organizations based on their stance.
Millions of borrowers benefit from the PSLF program. So will this impact all of them? Because as you're saying, the nature of the language is very broad. And will this impact be felt immediately?
It probably will not be felt immediately. So under the statute that created PSLF, there's no mechanism for a president to alter the terms of the program. So what the president actually does in the executive order is he directs the Department of Education to create regulations that implement the substance of that order. Going through that regulatory process where you draft new rules is a long, complicated process that takes at least a year, often longer. So this is not going to go into effect anytime soon. Many, student borrower advocacy organizations have threatened legal challenges over this if it does go into effect, whether it's directly through an order or through regulations, because again, the statute governing PSLF doesn't really provide this type of wiggle room where whole categories of organizations that qualify can be excluded based on certain types of activities. So, this is going to probably be a long process where rules have to be drafted and then those rules could be challenged in court.
You and I talked at length about student loan forgiveness during the Biden administration, the actions he tried to put forth, as well as the legal hurdles they faced. You're saying that this action could suffer the same fate legally. Is that correct?
That's correct. I mean, there is some degree of irony here where, former President Biden was often accused of going above and beyond what the statute actually provided when he tried to expand relief for student loan borrowers. But that same argument could be applied here in this context as well.
And so if I'm a borrower right now that benefits from the PSLF program, I'm confused reading this. I'm wondering, hey, am I going to be on the hook for that money that kind of was a promise that I paid back 10 years and then the rest is absolved? What should they be thinking right now? What should they be doing?
And the reality is that there's not much borrowers can do right now, because this process has to basically play out, continue to certify your employment, continue to make qualifying payments. The program is here for now. And the only thing that we can really do is kind of just see how things play out. There could also be legislative changes to PSLF, and there's some indication that Congress is considering some sort of changes to PSLF through the legislative process. So the other thing that folks can do is contact your reps in Congress and ask them to preserve the PSLF program.
And more broadly, the Department of Education was established in 1979 under President Jimmy Carter. There are reports now that in President Trump's second term, he could be thinking, he's mulling over signing an executive order that would dismantle the Department of Education. If I'm a borrower, if I have student loan debt, what does that mean for me?
So just like with PSLF, the Department of Education was created through legislation passed by Congress, and it would take an act of Congress to actually fully dismantle the U.S. Department of Education. That's not something that can really be done through an executive order. If the Department of Ed was reduced or dismantled, what would likely happen is the Office of Federal Student Aid, which handles the federal student loan system, would simply be moved over to a different federal department, most likely the U.S. Department of Treasury. But that likely would require an act of Congress, and it's unclear if that would happen. That being said, the Department of Education is already being undermined from within through staffing cuts, funding cuts, and so the operations of the Department of Education can be greatly reduced and diminished even without fully dismantling it. And that can have very profound impacts for millions of student loan borrowers. That can, lead to longer processing times. Call centers might close or have reduced hours or longer call hold times. There could be more errors, more delays, including for public service loan forgiveness. So this can have very serious impacts.
Forgiven student loans are tax-free at the federal level, but this provision expires at the end of 2025. The government aims to complete as many forgiveness cases as possible before this deadline to prevent borrowers from facing unexpected tax bills in 2026. Policy shifts and future outlook. While the current administration is moving forward with forgiveness for eligible borrowers, future policy changes could tighten or reshape the program.